Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas, everyone.
What's up, Mortal Kombat fans?
What's up, Mortal Kombat fans?
My name is Nathaniel Blaustone.
And I am Zachary Blaustone.
I'm one of your hosts.
And I'm the other host.
Are we related?
Somewhat.
We have a very exciting special announcement to make today.
We do.
Should we talk about anything before that?
No.
No, it's too awkward because they're sitting right in front of me.
Precisely.
Coming to you live in studio, if you're in studio with us, which is just the three of us, so it's not live if you're watching this now. Our first in-studio guest, the one, the only, Jonathan Garza.
Hey.
Hi.
It's me. Hi, guys.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going fab. How are you?
Fantastic.
Very happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
It's only been in the works for months.
Yeah, no, I mean, Nathan mentioned it to me. I don't even know how long ago, but
It was a while ago.
It was a minute.
I think it was in the summer. Right now it's, I think this is being posted a few days before Christmas.
Yeah.
And so Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, Merry
Happy
Christmas.
holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Or Happy Holidays, because on the Mortal Kombat podcast, we don't Merry Christmas.
No. Jesus' birth.
We say Happy Holidays. We respect all religions.
Yes.
Or Quizmoas, like Camila Cabello.
Ooh.
Quizmoas.
Ooh, educate us, please. We're already learning something.
There's a clip out there somewhere of
Yeah,
her singing that, and it's silly.
That's true. You can look it up on this.
Christmas with
YouTube.
a Q.
Yeah.
I like Christmas with a Q.
This is the Mortal Kombat podcast. We are a podcast that mostly talks about religious trauma. Both Zachary and I were born and raised in the Christian Evangelical Church. And so you might be wondering, why is Jonathan Garza? Who is Jonathan Garza? Why is Jonathan Garza here? Well, Jonathan, why are you here? Why did you even say yes to be on this podcast? It's about religious trauma.
Great question. Well, why I'm here is, there's this thing that happens when two people get married, or maybe not, and then they have a night together, and then 9 months later, here I am.
Oh my God. Wow. That sounds pretty special.
Oh, I get it. Like you were born.
I was born, like Jesus on Christmas Day.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
So you're
Wow,
saying,
did I just equate myself
are you
to
saying that
Jesus?
your mother was the Immaculate?
Mother Mary?
I guess you don't have to say your mother's name. We'll just call her Mary tonight.
Yeah, she's a sweet little lady.
You are kind of like...
Her name is not Mary, though.
In my life, and as I've known you, you are very much the Jesus Christ.
Love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
We've got the
puff
one and
me
only.
up.
Well, if you think
Wolf
about
Studio.
it, what did Jesus do? They sacrificed their life for the rest of humanity, and you are our first in-studio guest. It feels like you're sacrificing yourself to be here today. We really appreciate it.
We do.
I am more than happy to be here. It's very, very exciting. I'm a little fidgety, so just, if I need to stop fidgeting, just tell me.
Do whatever. Be you. Because the more you are you, the more it's going to be unique.
And I feel fidgety right now.
I'm
nervous. I'm nervous as fuck.
Yeah, I'm fidgety every time we start. That's why we for the first 10 or 15 minutes, we just shoot the shit and we don't talk about anything serious because it's kind of hard to get into the headphone space too.
Sure.
But you'll get comfortable once we get into it.
That was my question that you just answered inadvertently. I don't know if we could how much I could curse or not.
So we get shadow banned on a regular basis for what we talk about in this podcast. So you go ahead and say whatever the fuck you want.
It doesn't really fucking matter.
Fuck yeah, I will.
Fuck yeah.
No, something
such a good word.
We've tried everything.
Yeah.
We've tried to we've tried to bleep them out. And I think that ultimately most of the platforms are leaning to being more, everyone friendly.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter when you're talking about things that these platforms I don't think really want you talking about. At least that's been our experience.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, anything really religious trauma, they're like, we're not going to show that to anybody.
It's getting a little
fuck.
It's getting a little bit better. It's getting a little bit better.
Well, the more we grow, it's getting better. And that's I think how we're going to push against the algorithm is just to get people that are choosing to watch it instead of scrolling past it.
Yeah.
But we've gotten over the whole cursing thing.
In other words, you just be you tonight.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
however you want to put yourself out there, because you realize that this is being shared to millions and millions of people.
Millions. We have a huge
over
following.
the course of the next 100 years. Right now, maybe 25, 30 people will see this. And we thank you for watching this episode here. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to those 30 people.
All right, little background. I you met Jonathan through me, which I met Jonathan through your husband.
My husband.
Which, congratulations, you are very recently married.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I didn't wear my ring.
Oh, that's okay. No. It's okay. Your husband's never going to see this episode.
No,
he'll never know.
He's going to be livid now. You're going to definitely hear about it now.
He's like annulled.
Yeah, right. But anyways, I've worked with your husband now for about 6 years. We're both registered nurses. You're a registered nurse.
I am indeed.
But we work at different hospitals.
Yes.
What hospital are you at?
St. Helena, Adventist Health St. Helena.
So
He's up on the hill.
Drive up there?
Mm-hmm.
It's like 45 minutes, no?
It's about like 35 in the morning and about 45 coming back.
This is wine country. And so where Jonathan works, it's about a 45-minute drive of beauty.
So
it is very beautiful.
For each day you work, you drive about an hour and a half.
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
Yeah, saying it out loud.
Wow.
Really, haven't
you been
hammers it in there, Zach.
You've been there for about 10 years.
Actually, I just had my 15-year anniversary there.
Good for you.
So you've been doing the drive long enough to where it's kind of like whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it literally is like the back of my hand.
Right.
Isaac is always so worried that I'm gonna.
So you've been
like
a nurse.
something bad's gonna happen, and I'm like, it's like my daily thing.
Well, it's a windy road up that wine country hill.
Yeah, I do get nervous when it's windy because it's like covered fully by trees almost the whole way. And I'm always like, one day, like a branch or a whole tree could just fall right on me.
Well, on that note, we're so happy that we got you to record this episode before that happened.
Yeah.
Before the winter storms come and, wipe me off the face of the earth.
Most people like do this or some sort of prayer whenever they say something bad. But on this podcast, we just say, good luck.
Yeah. Best.
Hope for the best.
And be with you.
Yeah. Stay awake on the wheel.
Thanks, guys. I'll do my best.
So back before I was sober, we've partied so much together, and
a few times.
Your husband was the sweetest man at the hospital who just took me under his wing and was like, "You're coming with me here, and you're coming with me here."
Did he train you?
I think I followed him for all the epic stuff and like charting because he's
cool.
A-type, very OCD, perfect.
Yeah.
They really bounced me around.
Wow, you don't know him at all.
Okay, you said his name. Yeah, I'm gonna let you drop it. Isaac.
Isaac. Now we can say it forever.
We love you, Isaac.
Love you.
Thank you for creating this relationship between us.
Yeah, baby. Thank you.
You said he's very like OCD.
Isaac. I mean, I think like most
Maybe
nurses,
OCD
are pretty A-type personalities.
A-type, that's what it is.
Yeah, but Isaac is a perfectionist.
Yeah. I do have to say, partying with you and your husband is like the most fun.
Yeah.
You guys have some of the best energy.
Which, speaking of parties, we just had your Christmas party last night.
Last night. I'm still in recovery mode. That's why my voice is so deep and dark and sultry.
It's all part of the plan.
We had Zachary couldn't make it, but me and my fiance were there, and we had a 40, how many people was it? 44.
There was 44
white
in the
elephant
ornament
gift
exchange, but I don't know. Was that every single person that was? I think there was more
people
that were.
So long.
Yeah.
My goodness.
When you come to our house, it'll seem even more when you realize we were all in our
living room,
which is like not large at all.
Oh, but it was so cute.
Yeah, it was fun.
And you guys have completely remodeled your house. It's got the outside bar and lights.
Yeah, lots of work, lots of landscaping and. It's fun though. I mean, I think it's great back there because you remember what it was like before.
I know it's beautiful.
Really not great.
You have a perfect dinner party house.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We should all definitely
have a party there sometime for the Moral Combat podcast.
Yeah, totally. Come over. Little after party, after pod party,
like tonight.
Yeah, right now. Isaac, we're coming over.
We're bringing the cameras.
So yeah, then you and I got really, I think like when we first met, we connected on our past connection to the church.
Totally.
That was like the first conversation I think we had.
I remember when you called me after you had that conversation with him, because it was like really soon after we started talking about religious trauma, and you were like, I think we have our first guest.
Well, I'm talking about like about almost 6 years ago.
Okay, so before the cast.
Yeah, like drunkenly, me and Jonathan were like, we connected on the fact that we both grew up in the church.
Interesting.
And you did music.
I was going to say it started with talking about music because you said something about like DJing or something.
Of course.
And I think that was how we kind of like, at least on my end, was like connected with you. Like, oh, this person likes music. And I'm always kind of or have been looking for people to like either play with or kind of inspire me to get back into music, because I haven't pursued that as an adult, even though I was
like in the church, you did music.
And I did it in church for my whole life. And,
that's something that I have found really tough, is that while you were in the church, you could jam with everyone you could jam with. Like, I jam with them, I jam with them. Whereas you get out of church and it's like, I got to find some people to jam with.
Yeah.
Like, who plays music around here? It's hard.
Do you
hard.
Do you think there's like a connection to the fact that you were like heavily involved in music in the church, and then whenever the leaving of actually, let's just go ahead and jump into,
I thought that's what we were doing. I thought that was the smoothest way to
Well,
jump
I think
in.
before I was about to jump in, I was going to say, do we want to leave these hats on?
I'm going to take mine off.
I think I'm probably going to take mine off too.
Yeah, let's take
I feel
these
a little
off.
bob, like,
Right.
And then like, I can't get the headphone to fully secure.
Yeah.
So were you Baptist? What were you born in? Were you born in the church? Did you get saved? All right.
Yeah.
Give us the spiel.
Yeah.
Sure. So I was born into the Seventh Day Adventist church, I guess.
Okay.
My family, I think we were third generation. I think my grandparents' parents were the ones, so my great-grandparents, I guess, were, like teachers up in Washington back in the like 1910s and 15s. And then like, I think a literature evangelist came through and like converted them to
Which,
the
mind
Seventh Day
you,
Adventist.
we don't know any Seventh Day Adventist history. So everything you're saying right now, I'm like,
Oh,
But we
cool.
know all about the Seventh Day Adventist Church.
we know about the facilities.
We rented y'all's buildings all the time.
Yeah, because we were on Sundays and you're on Saturdays,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We say this as if this is the case now, but in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some at the I'll get back to what I was saying. Instead of jumping around.
You do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like
We're
squirrel.
just here to listen.
Yeah, so I was born like third generation Adventist on both sides, actually. I think my dad's parents were also Adventists, like for life. And I was very heavily involved in the church just because both my parents were teachers at the Adventist school, the elementary school that I went to, and went to Adventist high school that was down there in Monterey. And then Adventist College over in Napa Valley.
So every piece of your upbringing was Seventh Day Adventist.
Every last piece.
Cold. What?
Well, okay, I will say that is a common a common thing that people say about the Adventist Church, and I think that was they use the C word,
Right.
For it because of that,
Right.
being it's so like enclosed and encapsulated, and I mean, looking back, there's like obviously a reason for that. It's like to keep everyone in as much as possible, and to kind of keep everyone
Sheltered.
blissfully ignorant of the world, basically. But yeah, no, I mean, I had a great childhood. My parents did divorce when they separated when I was 7, started divorcing when I was 9, and finished that when I was 12. So that was kind of...
So all when you were younger.
All when I was younger. That was kind of a little bit of a rough patch, just the whole like divorce thing, being like in a Christian church where my mom was a teacher. So like a leader, of sorts in the church. To have them go through that, I remember I was very like embarrassed, and I was very, people would ask me like, "Where's your dad?"
Like in the church.
In the church, or like at school, like kids would ask me like, "Why don't we see your dad around?"
Right.
And
Were they both as like strongly evangelical in the church equally, or was one parent more strong than the other?
I mean, I think my mom probably was stronger only because she stayed at the school. When they got married in the 70s, they both got hired at that same school and worked. My dad worked there for about 10 years, and then he moved on and became like an engineer, and actually worked in Silicon Valley. Like,
So I think this is what's so already
in the 90s.
Yeah.
What's already so interesting is like just already seeing the differences in your parents in their connection to education. So like
Mhm.
in Seventh Day
Yeah.
Adventist church,
There is, I think, a connection to education.
is there like, are people more educated in the church of Seventh Day Adventists, or like degrees?
I would say it definitely, that is a big like focus, right? It's like stay in school, get educated, get a degree so that you can go out and like help the world, basically. So there's a heavy emphasis on like service. What's it called? My brain. Career service, career choice.
Right.
So like anything like nursing,
Which is crazy because I work with a lot of Seventh Day Adventist nurses.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Doesn't it make sense?
Connecting those dots.
And I'm not Seventh Day Adventist, and that's why I'm a nurse. Because we've made that connection so much, right? It's like,
you've made that connection.
I didn't really know any other career to go into. Like, I wanted to do psychology. Go figure. It was like our dad's a pastor.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I want to go into psychology and talk to people.
Yeah.
Look at me now.
Well, do you think that's why you became a nurse? Do you think that was a big driving point?
I think so. Well, kind of. Yeah. I mean, I actually always wanted to be a teacher. When I was young, I wanted to be like just like my mom and kind of follow in her footsteps. I thought I was going to be an elementary school teacher.
Just like all around.
Yeah.
Nice. You would kill it. Honestly, I could totally see you being an elementary school teacher.
I mean, there's still a part of me that thinks like maybe one day, but oh my gosh, I'm doing like nursing education now.
Yeah.
Which is
similar.
entirely, well,
They're a bunch of kids.
solid point. Same, but different.
They're just kids, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be fun. I think I have a lot of untapped things in my soul, in my heart that I could do if I put my energy toward it.
Right. It goes for all of us.
Yeah.
These dreams and aspirations.
Yeah. But I'm sorry. What I don't think I answered your question though.
I've totally forgotten.
We were talking about how
totally
you were
went
asking
off.
about how each parent was more religious or more.
And you were saying your mom was maybe a little more religious than your father.
Yeah, I think so.
Are they both still religious?
They are.
Yeah.
My mom definitely more. English is so limited sometimes. More traditionally, I would say, like she's a little bit more. I don't want to say the word like stuck in maybe her ways of thinking, but at the same time, she's also been really like open and accepting of like Isaac and I over the years. So it's, I don't want to say that too much, but my dad, religious still, but his background was a little bit more traumatic, like as a child. I won't go into that, but he has always been a lot more questioning of kind of everything. Like he's kind of one of those people who has always like hated Western medicine, very resistant, which of course,
interesting.
Now, unfortunately, he's like has, stage 4 kidney disease, he's kind of like stuck with it, unfortunately. Kind of odd how those things come back around. But anyway, so he's more, I would say he's less religious and he's more, just wants to be like a godly man. And he, I think he has a lot of guilt and stuff from the divorce and that whole situation that happened with my family back then when that happened. A lot of stuff happened in his family and his subsequent families, that has really made him a lot more, just like opened emotionally to us, and which I love.
Sounds like less ignorant.
Less ignorant, and actually he was the only person in my family that has said that he thinks that me being gay is a good thing. So that's like a kind of a more recent, special little like moment for my brain to hold on to. So basically what you're saying now is that there's been some pretty amazing healing, maybe with your parents or like in your relationship with them. Okay, so like you're in the Seventh Day Adventist church, your parents split when you said you were 7 or 12, which has its own traumatic consequences, right? Sure.
And so when was it exactly that you like departed from this idea of being this religious? When did that happen? The Seventh Day Adventist person.
Yeah. Well, I think it's still happening. I think it's a current work in progress. I mean, I'm definitely like farther along in that. But I'll say after college, when I came out like fully.
When was that?
You came out after college.
I came out after college. I kind of did a little
late bloomer.
two-step. I came out to like a close group of friends when I was like 19.
Okay.
With like that I was bi and that I had feelings for men, but I also had feelings for women. And
was that true?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that. I mean, I personally, for me, I was saying bi as a self protection thing because I didn't want to admit that I was gay because that, and I'm sure we'll come back to this point, but that was something that was like, I'm not going to be saved if I choose to be gay. So I'm going to choose to like put my energy and put my emotions and love into someone who I think is acceptable to the church or to how I am supposed to feel.
Gotcha.
So I kind of did that soft coming out earlier, and then I like fully went back in. Well, I say fully went back in, but no one else was believing it. Shocker there.
Like you were only like you're dating only women. Like I'm just straight.
Yeah, and I did date a woman, a really beautiful, great girl. And
this is high school.
This is college. This is college. I was just we'll come back to that too.
Sure.
What was I saying? Oh, she and I like got on really well. Actually, looking back, she was a lot like my mom.
Shocker.
And I know, stunning revelations. But she was great. Well? She was Seventh Day Adventist. Okay. Yeah.
You were so perfect.
I know.
You had it.
Yeah.
What have you done?
13 months together.
Wow.
And then she broke my heart.
Did she really?
In the dorm lobby. I was like crying. I was
Maybe
oh my God, it was so bad.
You.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
I am so grateful to her to this day because she her reason was I can't ever be confident that I'm enough for you.
Wow.
To meet you because I told her like 3 weeks in that I was bi. Again, that was the narrative at the time,
which is a huge no for people who are either evangelical, at least for the faith we were raised in. Is it similar for Seventh Day Adventist? Yeah. I mean, like being any LGBT, is not okay.
Not okay.
And, again, like you're choosing that life.
Yeah.
And you're choosing to live in sin.
Right.
That whole thing.
So at the time,
tickles my bad parts.
So religious Seventh Day Adventist, this ex-partner of yours, like when you were much younger, would be more accepting or be okay with you being bi rather than it being like, that's why you would say that, right? It's like really a safety. When you were with them, did you love them?
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
I was totally in love with her. I mean, I think, as I've gotten older, I've been more comfortable with accepting and being like, that's not the word I'm looking for. I guess accepting and more open with like my strengths. Because that is something that in Adventism and maybe in other denominations too, there's a pretty big denial of self that is promoted. It's kind of like Frozen, like conceal, don't feel type thing,
Totally.
And so, wow, I totally lost where I was going with that. But yeah, so it was.
I think what you were getting at is that like it was there was no ability for you to be truthful with what you were feeling or what you were because all of what you were raised with was denying that truth.
Yeah.
Projecting yourself right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, because yes, that is what you're hearing. Thank you.
Which is identical.
For helping me out here.
Which is identical for the way that we were raised. I don't even feel like I had a full grasp of my true self. I mean, I started to learn truths when I left the church, which was like 17, 18. But it all hit me so fast that like I was basing all of my experiences from a church upbringing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was going into this still thought the world was evil. I still thought I was better than other people. But even though I didn't think of it because I wasn't a Christian, so I wasn't thinking I was better, I was like living still in this sort of like egotistical, narcissistic. I didn't even know who I was. I was just projecting what I'd learned from the church, but I didn't believe it anymore. And so I don't feel like, for me, I didn't feel like I like started to really grasp my true self until like really like the last 5 years, it feels like.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe I think that's true
that's
for
just
all
part
of
of
us.
deconstructing is like you can say you don't believe in the faith, but then to like actually take away that ego and to take away that like
That inner
you
dialogue.
are better than everyone else. You have the truth is like something you have to realize you even have in the first place. And it's like so deep.
Mm.
It really is, and that is one of, and has always been. In fact, like look at like when I think back to even being a small child, that particular thing has always rubbed me wrong. Probably because I was different as a kid. Like people, I mean, I'm not going to say that I was like bullied or anything. I'm sure by nowadays standards, maybe that's what it was, but. For me at the time, it was just like teasing, they'd call me girly or call me a girl and then in high school, like they'd call me gay or whatever. But from a small child, that whole thought that like the Seventh Day Adventist Church has the truth. We are the ones that have the highest knowledge of biblical understanding and no one else. We're those 144,000 that are in the book of Revelation. Like that's us. We're the remnant people.
No, that's us.
And well, exactly. And
No, that's them. No, that's not us. That was us.
and I always just like had such like, I mean, for as long as I can remember, I'm like, how can that be? Like growing up in, even though it was a small school, thinking like knowing how many billions of people were in the world at the time, how can that be like a literal number? How can that be that we are the ones that have like this absolute truth?
Chosen people.
Yeah. Well, we had a prophet, like no other denomination.
And who was your prophet?
Who's your prophet?
Our prophet's name was Ellen White. Alan G. White.
Alan White.
It sounds like the whitest name I've ever heard.
It does. My name's Alan G. White.
Well, I gotta be white.
Yeah.
No, the church was birthed, I think, in the Second Great Awakening in American history. So like early to mid 1800s.
Sure.
And like huge focus on like health and wellness and service. Which are attributes of the church that I actually still do really appreciate.
Yeah.
That's how they sneak into your soul, though, because they do all this good work under this weird doctrine.
Yeah. That's like, we could get so sidetracked. That's a great point that it's like the church does so much good, but it's just always normally like with other consequences or other
some
things
really
that
oppressive doctrine behind it.
Right. Exactly.
Well, it's the intention of like, okay, we're gonna provide this with the thought that we'll bring you in and indoctrinate you, I guess, right. then you'll become a believer or...
Yeah, we did it. We did it.
We'll save you.
We did it.
We'll save you from the world.
Did you guys do missions trips?
We did, but I've never been on one.
Oh.
I know I'm such a bad Adventist.
Wow.
I'm such a bad Adventist kid.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Let me tell you, you missed out on a lot.
I actually really did want to go, like in college, but then I was in the nursing program and there was like, zero time for anything.
No time. Although there was always those kids in nursing school that went on these international like learning trips and be like, how? Money.
Yeah, money.
They had money.
Yeah.
It's always money.
I'm still open to go on one though. Our friend Charity. Do you know Charity?
I don't know.
Actually, she was
maybe
there
I
last
know
night.
Charity. They do like
she started doing some like I forget the group that she goes with, but
medical?
Like medical mission trips. I think that would be fun to do.
You know what's so funny is ever since I've left the church, I've had this connection to the missions, this idea of traveling, getting out of your shell, getting away from your home. We have it so easy here. And I feel like one of the things I recognized coming out of the church was, and of course we've talked about so much on this podcast together, but like this idea of being a victim. And so it was like, you not only were you the chosen ones, but everyone's out there to get you. And
everyone thinks you're crazy.
Right? And so like you're putting yourself out there into the world. Why was I even saying this? What were we just talking
Victims?
about? But what was the thing we were talking about right before?
Mission trips.
Mission trips, yeah. And so mission trips were all about the fact that you were like this warrior, this soldier that's like traveling across the world, and you were on the church's dime normally. So not only could you travel the world for free, but you're also doing the Lord's work while you're there. So you're saving people.
And you're normally traveling to impoverished like parts of the world. And so you already feel superior no matter what.
Exactly. That's extremely validating as a human being when you get to travel, get out of your comfort zone, see how the rest of the world works. But the most like damaging part about what the church does is you see everybody else as lower than you because you're there to help them. So you go to impoverished places, you help build homes,
orphanages,
and then you do the play at the square for all the poor people that aren't white. And there was always this like connection to like, you're the savior, the Jesus complex, or whatever it might be. And so ever since like, but that like desire, there's so much that's came out of the church that is really good, and you can take from that. So I've always wanted to do like hurricane help, right? Or be part of like some sort of like, what do they call it? Like you get like a email or a phone call if there's a natural disaster somewhere in the world and they have a call, and then you go out and
you guys should. You both should. You're licensed nurses, damn it.
Yeah, but if you really look into it, you have to do everything on your own.
Really?
Yeah.
There's no organization out there that helps with, getting nurses to help with disasters. I think there are.
There's some, but like really when it comes down to doing these things, you have like a person who runs the organization, and then they like get people all together, and then you have like a meeting, and it's like, hey, how much money can we raise to get the supplies we need? And you like build it on your own. It's not like there's people like,
How do the churches do it then? They just have more money?
This is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
The network of the church is fucking evil, man.
It's deep is what it is.
Anyways.
So Seventh Day Adventist, I'm just not familiar with like how similar it is to the way we were raised. Like, is prayer a big part of Seventh Day Adventist?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, I think it's like any other Christian denomination in that, you have like, it's Christian, so you believe in Jesus. But for us, we believe in the Trinity. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, we do.
If that's a
very confusing.
thing.
Very confusing.
I know, right?
Very
Only confusing for the fellows that don't get it.
Yeah. No, very confusing.
Yeah, born into it. I get it.
Very confusing.
3 people in one.
Yeah,
Duh.
easy, dumb.
Obviously.
Yeah. So I thought you said you guys believe in Jesus.
Believe in Jesus.
But he wasn't the ultimate prophet? Or
he was our savior. So he came to die to atone for our sins.
So then who was this other prophet you brought up?
Oh, Ellen White.
Yeah.
So she was just a founding mother of the church. Founding father, founding mother.
Love it.
Founding mother.
Same.
Founding mother.
I mean, I already want to apologize. I assumed Ellen G. White was a man, and I think that's really bad on my part. Because I made that accent. That was like a masculine accent. So it's Ellen.
Ellen, not Alan.
Alan
White.
So Ellen G. White was
so
mother.
Yeah. So she was like a young woman who had visions. Coincidentally, after being traumatically assaulted with a stone as a child and disfigured and had a seizure disorder. We're just going to not talk about that.
God works in mysterious ways.
Exactly.
Definitely no head trauma. No brute force head trauma.
Not a single thing.
No.
What year is this?
This was like 18.
Okay, so at least
50s,
old.
I want to say.
Okay.
So she had some visions. She has a lot of written works that then helped basically form the church out of the Great Disappointment. Have you heard of that?
It
Probably
sounds
not.
a little familiar.
It was in 1844. It was a group of, this was pre-Adventist church, Millerites who thought that they had figured out the day and time that Jesus was going to return the second time.
Oh, yeah.
By doing mathing the Bible a little bit. And October 22, actually 1844, is the Great Disappointment Day.
Wow, you're so well educated.
I mean,
You must be an Adventist thing.
You must have learned it when you were
totally
growing up.
I was also in a play called This Adventist Life that like totally did a little bit of this actually, now that I'm saying it out loud.
Wow.
A little bit of deconstruction of and commentary on the church, but that aside. So the Adventist church was birthed from, obviously that didn't happen. We're all still here. Jesus didn't come, take him away. The few people that remained like faithful, most everyone was like, okay, F this, like we're done. After that didn't happen. But the few that were left basically became the Adventist church. And Ellen White, I think, married one of the people that was one of those like remnant persons. And then she started having these visions and writings, and then the church just kind of grew from there. They, unfortunately, I mean, there's definitely been a shift away from her because her writings are just so dated. I mean, talking about like the secret vice. You guys heard of secret vice? Is masturbation.
Ooh.
And how like it would like grow hair on your palms and like make you blind. And
Masturbating would grow hair on your hairy palms. I wonder what that would feel like. Masturbating.
So you were told that as a kid?
Or
was it
not
just kind of
so
like
much. It was more of like I was not told that by my parents.
Okay.
I feel like we're getting to the first repressed sexual trauma of the Seventh Day Adventist. It's like hairy
100%.
hands.
Hairy
for
masturbation
sure.
hands.
Because you were guilty. Like I felt very guilty masturbating.
Really?
Yeah. I had a
Okay.
lot of guilt with that as a young person.
Which makes
Wow.
sense. It makes sense.
We did too.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough not to being raised in at least the faiths that we know. And obviously now that you know, just masturbation is shunned for some reason. I feel like it should be praised so that you don't have sex. Cause that's like the big thing, at least for us, was like, just don't have sex before you're married.
Yeah.
And you'll be okay. It's like, cool. Then tell me to masturbate 24/7.
So then let's talk about some guilt
Have some
connection here.
release.
You felt guilt while growing up, like masturbating was a guilty thing. Did you pray before you ate
We did.
food?
Yeah.
Like every meal?
Every meal.
So when you were by yourself or not with your family, would you like, or with friends that weren't maybe Seventh Day Adventists, would you
at
feel
least
guilty?
pray to yourself to make sure you get your prayer in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Okay.
Nailed it, Zach.
How about
Got me pinned.
what about like devotions? Did you like read your Bible in the morning or?
Yeah. We did. We used to have like family worship.
Wow, that's kind of nice.
We did have like some family devotional. It like during the week, it wasn't so much. I think because my parents were like educators and they were also busy with their own jobs and stuff, raising 3 kids. And then my mom was a single mom, kind of pretty young in my life. It was mostly contained like on the weekend, so on the Sabbath, which is Seventh Day Adventist.
Yeah.
Yes,
So Friday night
got that.
sundown to Saturday night sundown is the Sabbath.
What do you do on the Sabbath? Do you not eat?
Or what do you
Nothing.
not do?
That's it. It's what do you not do. So it's like you don't go out to eat, you don't buy or sell anything. So it's like it's very like biblically based. From like the Old Testament.
You don't buy or
works.
the capitalists hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That might be why that's my
Yeah, tell us.
that might
Tell
be
us.
why that might be why this is a Christian country and not a Seventh Day Adventist country. You see, Christians buy on Sunday. We watch football
7 days a week.
7 days a week, baby.
Yeah.
Spend that money. Slide that card.
So then your upbringing, you'd be in school Monday through Friday,
Yes.
and then you get home and be like, cool, I can't do much because now I'm in Sabbath.
So Friday was preparation day, which is when you cleaned the house to prepare for the Sabbath.
Because you can't clean on the Sabbath.
Because you can't clean on the Sabbath. Because it's very it's Judeo-Christian.
Yeah.
So it's very like, Jewish,
Sure.
Hebrew-based
Well,
practices.
the Sabbath was in our Bible. We just didn't follow it. It was more like we don't have to do that for some reason. We just decided not to follow that part of the Bible.
I actually don't know why the difference or what. I mean, it's just different.
Well, it's kind of like the picking and choosing of each denomination has their own little
Special.
like thing that they've chosen. Seventh Day Adventists, this is one of the main ones. Is like, we're going to follow the seventh day, and we're going to follow it to like the letter of the law. But did we follow the law of like not wearing blended clothes? Certainly not. Like that whole, all those like Levitical stuff.
So then, do you remember when you like walked away and you were went out on Saturdays? Was it like crazy?
That's the thing is like because my mom was a single parent, and my dad definitely like went away from the church in his second marriage for a bit. My mom kind of lightened up a lot in our teenage years. And so when I was in high school, like we started going out to eat on Sabbath. And she's been great in our lives, like as like more traditional and reserved. She's a very reserved woman, but very loving to us, but reserved just with other people mostly. She really instilled a solid, you make your own choices. Like you guys are your own people. You make you have your own relationship with God. I'm going to tell you what I think, but she definitely did instill that in us, that even though, maybe she, I don't know if she's regretted that sometimes, because we've all kind of like done our own thing and all kind of gone different ways. And now she's like, dang it, I should have like kept him closer or something,
Right.
I mean, I don't think so. She's not like that, but there definitely was though a certain feeling of like, ooh, I am doing something wrong. Like, is this wrong? But then you kind of like anything, you do it more and you kind of get used to it. But she's kind of since then kind of gone back into more like she doesn't want to do anything on Sabbath other than more like rest or like go like for walks in nature. And that was a huge thing growing up, was like getting out into nature.
On the Sabbath?
On the Sabbath specifically.
That you couldn't do it, or you should do it?
You should. You should do it. Yeah.
That's kind of nice though.
Yeah.
It's really
totally.
nice. Yeah. It's a nice little separation.
Yeah. We went to the Redwoods, Henry Cowell State Park down in Big Basin area.
Wouldn't driving though be like breaking the Sabbath?
Gas.
I mean, it could be.
Good point. Oil.
Very good point.
Big oil.
But you've purchased the oil prior.
Got
so,
you.
you're not
Fill up
actively.
Carbon emissions during the Sabbath though. Come on.
Who knew about that in the 90s?
I
Come
don't
on,
know.
Zach.
It's like a classic family outing
Al
on
Gore
Friday
knew
nights.
that too. I'm just kidding. We're not going into politics here.
Al Gore knew the 90s, the world was heating up.
Knew it.
Looping back,
Yeah.
when you broke up with this girl in college.
No, she broke up with him.
Sorry. Well, I know. I'm already changing your history for you. Yeah, but that's a very good, very, very big point, was the fact that you had your heart. I mean, everyone gets their heart broken in a breakup. And so this coming out of the closet / that's how I actually had this deconstruction, or whenever you leave the faith, and how you kind of mentioned that like this has been an ongoing process for you in your life of deconstruction, or the thought of being like, I'm not this, I don't believe this, or what have you. And so I guess then your sexuality and that coming out, does that have a very direct connection to your coming out of the church as well at that time?
Yeah, I do think so. Well, no, I guess I know so, because I was told by someone, basically they asked me, how can you be gay and believe in the Bible? How can you be gay and be a Christian? And my response at the time was, well, my belief is that everyone has their own relationship with God, with Christ, Jesus, whoever. And, how can he like expect someone to deny themselves who they are and like having the greatest gift that we all grew up believing he gave us, which was love. How can he expect me to not have that in my life just because I am who I am and I'm gay? And that definitely was like a pivotal conversation that I had with this person, and not that they know this, that was such a pivotal moment for me, but that was like that was a line that, looking back, I was like, okay, that was a time from that point on. I definitely started being more open to not being a part of the church. Yeah. Because even after college, like after I got my nursing degree, I stayed. I think I told you this, and got a music degree, and then I stayed at the college town and was doing worship music like once a month, like leading it and coordinating it after college for a couple years, and like still being involved in the music stuff there. And from that conversation on, I kind of definitely started retreating from that. I was still like so invested in it and so like a part of the community, and that was all the people that I knew were Adventist at that point. And then I met my lovely little sweet baby husband.
Where'd you meet Isaac?
We met online.
So wait,
or an app.
So then, like, who you're married to now, right? Like, you're the love of your life. He was your first kind of out of the church friend.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because that really is like, we were just talking about this. Our last episode was like, there's nothing scarier than like having that sort of awareness, like, of self, right? So it sounds like what you were saying was you had a conversation with somebody where they were like, how can you be a believer if you're living this sin? And you were like, good point.
I don't think that I verbalized that or had that direct thought at that point. I was actually very like kind of crushed and sad. Like that's a real bummer that you feel that I can't be, because I want to be like, and I did. I like desperately wanted to be, because my whole life was that, you know, like from the time I was born to all my education and degrees and beyond was all that. And it was sad to, I guess, have that spoken to me. But
it was like the seed that was planted to have some sort of self-awareness.
Yeah.
Even though, and it was extremely scary, right? Yeah.
And so now I'm actually kind of grateful for that conversation too, because it did allow me to give myself some space to be like, you know what, it's okay to go off and discover who you are, and to see what being gay is all about. Because I had no idea. I mean, I had certain things in my head of like, you know, like, if I'm gay, I'm not going to do certain things. So then, let's leave it at that. Like, you know, like I'll do these things, but I won't do this.
If you were
one
gay,
thing, especially, I'm never going to do that. Never going to do. Well, yeah.
Here's a question. Did you look at porn growing up?
I did. Yeah. I looked at gay porn. Mostly.
Were you
if
guilty?
Not exclusively.
Was it like guilty?
Oh, 100%.
So much guilt.
Because what goes along with porn watching?
Yeah, masturbation.
Exactly.
Hairy palms.
Hairy palms and blurry blind vision.
Yeah. And the only thing worse for the church than hairy palms are gay.
Exactly. I don't know. I just did that, like, you know, that creature with like the eyes.
Yeah, that's
what is that from?
It's Guillermo del Toro.
My gosh. Such a good movie.
Pan's Labyrinth.
Pan's Labyrinth.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Shut up, dude. Just accept that you got it. I hate it when he does that. So how old were you when you had this conversation? And you were like, should I stop believing this? Should I stop identifying?
I guess it was after college, right?
It was after college. So I was probably like 23,
Oh, okay.
maybe.
So still like the young 20s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Backtracking a little bit, I did. This is actually a positive thing of the church, I guess. The pastor at the college church that I went to, my ex-girlfriend really wanted to do premarital counseling for very obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, looking back, it was more of an excuse to get the conversation going so that she could have it in her mind to break it off with me. Like she needed some outside input.
Help.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because we did love each other and we had like a great connection and we loved spending time with each other. Anyway, that pastor actually told me, he's like, you know what, Jonathan, I think you're gay.
No way.
Really?
And he's like, and that's great. I love that. And
No way.
And I love you. He was super progressive, and
Oh, wow.
he didn't last too much longer there. I think probably because of that.
Yeah.
Not that specific conversation, but just his maybe more progressive values.
That was unheard of in my experience ever.
Yeah.
Still is pretty unheard
I
of.
was so pissed at him too, like when he said that, because I was like, "Oh my god,
I'm not.
I'm not. No, I'm not.
No, I'm not.
You're like, I'm toxic and masculine, you fucker.
Exactly.
bald.
I'm like, you're not helping my case here. I'm trying to stay with this woman. I'm trying to keep
get
her
married.
Yeah. But no, that was great.
That's
He's like,
wild.
you remind me of my nephew who I married to his husband like last week. I was like, oh god,
Wow.
thanks a lot.
What a gem.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, great. It was
That's a
good.
positive.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yeah. The gems of the church
Yeah,
versus the
Good guy.
cacti.
but I was pissed at the time. Don't know why I was saying that. You asked how old I was. I was 23 when that whole thing happened. I met Isaac when I was 25. So there was a couple years in there where, it was a very slow moving, I guess, beginning of my gay life, I guess. Which for me, I mean, I'm kind of a slow mover. Like I'm kind of like my mom in that way, like a little resistant to change. I'm like a homebody, you know, I don't like to move around a lot. I like to be comfortable, really. We just, I was just kind of exploring a little bit, and then
you met online.
Isaac, met online,
and
met on Grindr.
How long have you and Isaac been on together now?
12 years. Over 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beat us. Did he beat you?
I don't know.
How long you been with Alex?
42 years?
Yeah, long time.
I'm pretty old.
High school sweethearts. So
You're 42, but Nate's, just a few years.
Hey, the Bible gives us a lot of opportunity to do a lot of things.
Everyone knows what age I am right now. It's the same age Jesus was crucified. 33.
33.
No one can prove that.
That's one of my lucky numbers.
I have met so many ex-Christians or ex-people that's the joke. They're like, how old are you? I'm like 33. They're like, oh, this is your special year, right? Yeah. You're going to make it?
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, if I make it past 33, I'm good. We're good.
Yeah.
So was Jonathan your first?
Everything?
Isaac?
I'm sorry, Isaac. Yeah.
I was like,
Was yourself your
myself.
first?
Yeah,
I guess technically. Yeah.
When did you
My
fall?
hairy palm will say so.
That's a good question too. When did you fall in love with yourself? It's a great question too. But Isaac was your first?
No, he was
Okay.
not my first gay relationship. I kind of had one in college in that little time that I was briefly out. It wasn't official, but it was in Adventist standards, it was definitely like we were like seeing each other and like sneaking around in the dorm and,
Fun.
all that.
Sounds
all
fun.
that fun.
For a
little
religious
stuff.
school too, if it's the Seventh Day Adventist college.
Sounds even more fun.
Yeah. It was kind of fun looking back, but I was also desperate. So then I'm like, oof, yeah.
True.
I don't like that isn't a good look. I don't like
Desperate's
thinking
not
of
an
that.
attractive look. You heard it here,
No.
folks.
Yeah, I think it's going to become a thing, though.
Number one rule of dating:
Desperation.
don't be desperate. Just go in and kiss. Don't beg for the kiss.
Yeah.
Just lean in and take the risk.
There you go. Yeah. See,
You know what I mean?
what's the worst they can do?
Say no, move away. Yeah,
Turn the
exactly.
cheek.
Move away and be like, oh my God, you got the wrong idea. This is not what her.
Or they could just beat you.
And then you could just gaslight them and be like, no, I was just kissing your cheek.
Yeah. Did you think I was going for your lips? Lucky
What?
you.
That's a little presumptuous. Yeah.
Okay.
What was the question?
I think we're building the timeline, and I think that like what I'm learning just by your experience, because I'm getting to like a question that I wanted to ask, but that I think you said it because this is like an interview of your experience coming out of your born into the church, and of course, yeah. So you're gay, so you have the act coming out of the closet, but then like there's so much more I'm imagining because I think that's a whole experience you probably had, but then this connection to like this really strict upbringing that you've had, right? This idea of religious trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like, it sounds like my experience coming out of the church was like night and day. It was over a couple years from like 14 to 15 where I started to really think out of the box. I smoked weed and was like, oh, God, I don't know. But I was like, I'm no longer a Christian.
He was quick. He was a quick one.
So fast, and it created like a rippling, explosive effects in the church and my family, and then our family. And Zach was like very different. He was the youngest, and it was like slow burn. And it sounds like that's kind of how your experience was like a very like long process of finding yourself, and within that process, these conversations, a pastor telling you that you're gay and you feeling this like crushing, like, what are you talking about? So there's a lot of like trauma in this time. That's like a very long process. And so then you meet the love who you're now married to. And I'm sure had, that, real love and real unconditional love is like one of the greatest experiences when it comes to trauma in my life, right? And healing.
Yeah.
But, when you think of like this term religious trauma, like have you heard of religious trauma before you and I were talking about it in this podcast? Is that a term that you've thought in your head?
Never. Never.
Interesting.
2011 is when it was created. It's actually not that old.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a newer, I think that psychology around cults and the psychology of cults and what happens to the children that are like born in cults or like stuff like that there's a lot of research there. But yeah, this idea of like religious trauma syndrome is connection to like post-traumatic stress disorder or complex CPTSD. And like we've briefly like broken down some of it, but since you and I have been talking about it, do you think you suffer from religious trauma in your life now?
I'll say yes. Again, English is kind of limited. I don't know that I would necessarily use the word suffer, simply because I am very like grateful for like my life, and I'm grateful for like this type of conversation that like you were saying has been a slow burn. I don't think I would have been ready to like meet Isaac if I hadn't gone through what I had, if I hadn't had that conversation with the pastor or this other person who we had that discussion with. But Isaac and I, there's been lots of things like in our relationship, our struggles. So I guess in that way, I have suffered like in relationship struggles and some of our arguments. The way that I am, the way that I react to certain things.
What? You're perfect.
Well, it's very that, because Adventism is very like, you have to be perfect to be saved.
Yeah.
Like it's this whole like striving for perfection. Definitely it's gone away from that, as thankfully, for the young kids nowadays.
Yeah, right.
But that was totally like a thing, was like, you have to be perfect. Like you can't even think something wrong.
Right.
You can't have a dirty thought. You can't like, undress someone with your eyes because you're committing a mortal sin.
Yeah, adultery.
And totally. And, that's in the 10 Commandments.
Right.
And you're not going to be saved if you break any of those laws. And so some of the ways I have reacted and been hard on myself have definitely stemmed from that whole idea of perfection. Or like I've really had to do a lot of deconstruction of like sin. What is sin? Is there sin? Period. Like, or is that just things that we as humans know are wrong inherently, like in our evolutionary journey as beings, like killing each other,
Right. It's
not
bad.
That doesn't help our species grow.
No.
If we're killing each other.
But there's a lot of us on this planet. We consume a lot of shit, and that's becoming a problem. So
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Are you advocating something?
No, never. But yeah, you're talking about this idea of like right and wrong. What is it? And sin is like this special little thing that's like kind of different than right versus wrong. It's deeper seated. It lasts longer. Once you even leave a religion, this concept of internal guilt and shame. I think it's like what you're talking about with perfectionism was so true in our lives. And it's like that black and white thinking. There's really only one way or the highway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So everything outside of that isn't the one way. It's the opposite. And so like every decision I made out of the church for many years, there was this feeling of like, if I was having sex, if I was drinking alcohol, it was like, even though I wasn't thinking it was a sin, my body and mind were like projecting the sinner. Like, and I was always told, you know, the reason why you're going to want to sin is because sinning feels so good. It's the best feeling in the world is sinning. So, and it's like, so you have this thing that feels so good, but you're told it's so bad. So then once you leave the church, at least for me, it was like, oh, I just became like the world's biggest sinner is what it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like suppressing all of that guilt because I just didn't need to deal with it anymore. And then it came up, like you're talking about, in similar ways. This idea of like black and white thinking leaves you to either be like projecting something out of anger, which is how I dealt with a lot of my insecurities and lack of perfectionism, right? Or disassociating, or however that looks, because no one's perfect. And so everything in my life out of the church became that issue of black. Everything was still black and white. Everything was sin. I was just living in it. And that was also like reiterate, like everyone in the family, not everybody, but everyone in the church made it feel that's the sinner. Like that's exactly what happens.
The dead man, you chose death.
Yeah. Like that's what's going to happen.
I think religious trauma is easiest, at least for me, since starting this podcast, because you learn about religious trauma for the first time and you're like, wow, that's a lot. Of course I'm traumatized from the cult I was raised in. You know, that's the way it feels. Yeah. But then even just accepting that, it's like, well, where is it now? And I think that every time we've picked apart like very specific ideas like sexual repression trauma, the trauma of still having to have prayer like in your head before you eat. Like it took me a really long time to get over the idea that I don't have to pray before I eat, you know?
Yeah.
But like specifically like something like sexual repression, because at least in our faith, and I'm guessing it's the same with Seventh Day Adventist, it's just like you repress sexual desire until you're married. And if you're not married, you're not having sex. Yeah. And that's like what we were raised with. Was it something similar with you guys as well?
Totally. Yeah. So it was that almost exactly like you can't have sex outside of marriage. And if you do, that's a sin and you're bad and you're not saved. Yeah. And you're living in sin if you continue to do that. I think that's also maybe one of the things about being gay that maybe almost like sheltered me from that a bit, was because I kind of had to, in being gay, I kind of had to like step outside of that already. Just to be like, just to live as
your truth,
a truthful person in my body. Like I already had to be like
a sinner,
right? Like I had to accept that, like I'm a sinner in the eyes of this. And I think having to do that kind of protected me from, and allowed me to maybe step out and explore a little bit more freely. Yeah.
Probably because that sounds so traumatic as it is.
Totally.
Coming to a conclusion, which I didn't connect more with my bisexual gay side until much later in life. But like
last year to be exact.
just about 364 days ago. This feeling of like your truth, accepting this idea of what we started off with, like self-identity, and coming to the conclusion that it's bad, like just who you are. If that's really me, then I was born bad. Like I was in the eyes of everyone's born a sinner, right? That's what we're told. But if you're not the Christian, or if you walk away, then you are the definition of bad.
Yeah.
And that's complete. You have to completely deny your upbringing to accept yourself, which is extremely scary and traumatic. Yeah. And so
I think something that's special about your case, though, about being a gay man in the faith, is that was the worst thing you could do. At least
in our experience,
it was like there's sinning. There's so much terrible you can do, but you can be forgiven. But the gay,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to send you to a camp to get that out of you. Like it was just like the worst. And so like I feel like the trauma there is just a whole different level.
Yeah, I again thankfully was sheltered from that. Like I never had that experience of someone trying to get me to go to a camp or conversion therapy or anything like that.
Did you see anyone or had friends or anyone that you knew that had to go through that?
Not that I know of.
That's good.
Not that I know of. Yeah, maybe, but I don't. But I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Unconfirmed.
Okay.
Unconfirmed. Someone from high school, but yeah, but haven't kept in touch with that person. But to what Nathan was saying, like it was definitely like, yeah, I mean, I guess that has had repercussions in terms of just my relationships with like people from my past. Is I don't really have too many of them anymore because of that, because I pulled away because I felt like I couldn't stay in it because I was gay, because I chose to live this life.
You were no longer a chosen.
Yeah.
You weren't one of the Revelation 148,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
You literally weren't, right?
And exactly. I think though the something for me that has come from this idea of religious trauma and suppression and unfortunately is the loss of like music as a huge part of my life. I mean, because it literally was like, and I still do this to this day. You can ask poor little Isaac. I'm like constantly singing, like in the shower, like in the car. Like I love singing. I love music. I love to have it blasting and all around me in life. But I couldn't do music anymore after I came out because the only music I had ever done was in the church.
Yeah.
And I poured my heart and soul into it. And I thought I was like really good at it. And I loved like making string parts and arranging songs and, you know, and singing it with people. And, I just couldn't do it anymore. And that has been like a huge part of my life that I've like missed, which I think, again, everything happens for a reason, but I think part of why we became close was because I was like reaching out to people that and trying to connect with people on that particular level, like through music, because it's still a part of me that I'm, you know, want to.
So I want to come back
cultivate more, I guess.
I want to comment on that. I feel like music was like the light in the dark place. At least that's what it felt for me. It was like the worship and the afterglows. I don't know if you guys had afterglows or whatever.
Yeah, something similar.
It was just like, I don't know. It was like the non-boring part. It was like everything got lightened up at that part. And I feel like we connect on that a lot. On just like the music side of the religion, though, was everything.
It's very powerful.
So powerful.
I mean, like we really should be giving all of our thanks to sound.
Yeah.
All of the universe's vibrations. Like,
true.
So I think that there is immense through all of history in many different religions, sound is used as a powerful force of meditation, vibrations of the body, alms. You get enough people in a church all singing a powerful song together with an amazing, attractive, powerful singer, guitar player. Who doesn't look up down that stage and be like, rock star, this is it.
Yeah.
Rock star, I want this. And then you get up on that stage and you're good at it. And people come up to you and they're like, I want to let you know that I connected with the Lord so much because of
through you.
You're like, I know.
You're like, feed my ego. Feed it.
I know. So then you leave the church and it's like, all right, let's play some music. And then you don't get that.
Nope.
Not even close.
Not even close.
And you start to learn a lot about the fact that like, wait, why was I doing... And you have to relearn how to like do music. It's like a whole different part of the, I don't know. There's none of that projection. There's none of that.
Yeah.
I'm here for a reason. You know, like I'm supposed to be doing this for you. Less ego. And so it makes it, music's really hard. And like, that's what I'm learning right now in my life too, is I have these drums and they're everywhere all over the house. Do I play them? No.
Yeah.
And I went on like this crazy plant medicine retreat earlier this year and brought my drums and had this huge like awakening with my childhood to drumming. It like changed my life. And that was a direct connection to my dad, who's the pastor, where there's a lot of parental and religious trauma from, but he was like my access to drumming and music. And like that saved my life as a kid when I was like leaving the church, and that's what I clinged on to. But I too suffer from pretty bad, weird past trauma with music from our pasts. Just like the tediousness around it, writing music, and everything I write tends to have this spiritual worship sound to it. And I just can't get rid of it. Luckily, it's become really popular, so it kind of works.
Yeah.
But like,
Totally.
I really relate to that. And it's like I know that we did DJing. It was, what was something that was so separate from like church music, what was frowned upon in the church was like club music and DJs. So we were like,
let's do that.
We're doing that.
Yeah.
We're going to be
first into
DJs.
that.
I totally get that. One of the things that you had said was you don't really have any friendships or relationships really from anybody in your upbringing from the church, which I imagine is a pretty large group of people and some amazing, like huge history and memories with. But these two people that you seem to have pretty significant relationships with still, that you grew up with in the church, are your parents and your siblings, which...
Oh yeah, let's talk about your siblings. Are they still...
Yeah.
Give us a little background.
I should make a side note. I do still have like some very good friends that were there. I don't want to make anyone feel.
Yeah. Are they still Seventh Day Adventist?
Yes. Yeah. I still do have some good Seventh Day Adventist friends
Beat us.
from my past. But just not like,
Yeah.
that's not my main.
It's like an acquaintance. It's like we had a past together. We still love each other, but you don't call them every day and hang out with them. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, so my two older brothers are, one of them is SDA. The other one...
STA, what's that?
Seventh Day Adventist.
Sorry, SDA.
SDA.
Seventh Day Adventist. Get on the board, Zach.
Sorry, man. I don't know the acronyms.
Yeah, well, you should have done your research. Sorry, go ahead, Jonathan.
So one is Seventh Day.
Okay.
And the other one, I would say, is not.
Did you like kind of like, that was a little bit...
He would like... Well, he and I have I've realized that we're a lot more similar than like growing up. And maybe this is a little bit of religious trauma or like weird family dynamic trauma. Like I always, like with my oldest brother and he and I have had this conversation. Like we were always kind of like at odds because I was like the youngest and he was the oldest, and I was very sensitive and he was very like masculine, very just like kind of like no bullshit, like no nonsense, and like a sensitive little gay boy takes things to the heart very easily, and I was very offended a lot, and so we just like didn't get along that well, and we're like 6 years apart, so there's that enters into it too. But as we've gotten older and as like we both have kind of like moved away from the church, we realize like we're actually pretty similar and we actually like think a lot alike. Still very different people for sure, but we have a lot more in common than and think.
This is your oldest.
This is my oldest. My middle brother, we were closer as kids. We're not as close as adults. I think the religion thing definitely comes into play there. He doesn't approve that I'm gay. He doesn't approve of that. Not that he like has any, it's fine. We're around, and he's been around Isaac, and it's been fine. But I mean, even just recently, he mentioned that to me. Oddly enough.
Still, yeah, that just blows my mind. That you could be this far in your relationship. And I mean, nothing against your brother.
Yeah.
But just like that, people that are in it, so in it. Because I know we all know what it's like to be in it.
Your other, but besides the fact that like, this is about accepting one another fully and truly. This is like, if you come down to the core of just what this is about, do we accept each other just for being people and being able to...
Being human.
You accept him choosing his way to live.
Yeah.
But anyways, you have the two brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a sister?
I do. I have a 2 younger siblings, actually. I have a younger brother and a younger sister.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people?
From my dad's second marriage.
Oh, okay.
And then I have a younger stepsister as well from his third and current
So he's
wife.
got 6 kids.
Combined, yeah. At one time,
Popping them out.
At one time he had like 8 because his second wife had 3 kids.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And then I know it's a whole big yours, mine, and ours situation.
Love it.
But yeah, so my younger siblings, I would say they're not Adventist. I think my brother is Christian. I'm not sure about my little sister. We haven't had that conversation yet. She's still at, or she just graduated from Davis, I want to say, and she's working over there. But yeah, we're not as close, unfortunately, with the situation that happened with
So are you the only one that has like walked away from the faith?
No,
my
oldest brother.
Older brother?
Yeah.
But that's it? Just you 2? Rest of the family still in?
I mean, that's the thing. I don't know that my younger siblings were ever, because they kind of had a tumultuous childhood with that whole situation.
Trauma comes in many different forms.
Exactly. So I don't think that they identify as that. I know they identify as Christian, but
so it sounds like you're not as like, it's not like this
SDA.
is something that comes up, like Christmas is coming up. When this is shared, you're going to be having a family Christmas dinner with your family? Will you this year?
No, I think just my mom and Isaac's mom.
Really?
Yeah.
No siblings, no dad. The 2 moms and Isaac?
The 2 moms and Isaac.
Well,
maybe Isaac's brother.
Okay. So then you have a really good relationship with your mother.
Mm-hmm.
Has that always been the case?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Little mama's boy. I mean, I always say, I even say to her now, I'm like, Mom, I was the girl you never had.
What does she say to that?
She just kind of like laughs it off, because she doesn't really know what to say. Like I have like definitely pushed her boundaries of like talking about being gay and saying certain things like that. I do think she takes life way too seriously. I think people in general take life too seriously.
But especially religious people.
Especially religious people. Because it's like life and death, it's salvation.
Yeah, it's very serious.
It's black or white. And
Exactly.
It's black and white. There's only one way or the highway.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was just telling, this was a little tangent. I was just telling Isaac, I had this thought that one of Ellen White's visions was, or was I telling you this?
No, you probably told Isaac.
It must have been Isaac. One of her visions is literally of humans walking on this like narrow, like straight, mind you, straight and narrow, like stone path with like 1,000-foot cliffs on either side, and it's like a foot wide, and it's like the believers are like looking up towards heaven.
That's what they have to walk?
And they're walking the straight. You have to walk the straight and narrow. If you deviate at all, you fall off into the pits of hell. But God,
that sounds so hard.
That was
terrible.
That sounds so hard.
Like looking back, that actually is a little traumatic, because I remember as a kid thinking that like, oh, you have to be perfect. Like there's no deviance, or else you're like cast.
What
off
happens
to
if
the
you
side.
look down? Oh,
you're done. It's like Peter. What happened to Peter when he looked back?
Yeah,
he sank.
Like
he sank into the depths.
And like when you look down, that's like looking at porn. Yeah, it's like
exactly.
So scary.
I mean, some porn is a little scary, I have to say.
There's a lot of scary porn.
We've all been there.
Yeah. We've been down that rabbit hole.
Now I'm traumatized.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think we're all breaking down some shit we've seen, huh? Can we all agree on that?
Yeah.
Cheers. So you have a really close relationship with your mother. Something that Zach and I have intimately been able to experience on this podcast has been a significant change in our relationship with our parents. Mm-hmm. But my relationship with my parents has been evolving and changing ever since I started thinking outside of the box of Christianity.
Yeah.
And so this long process, it sounds like there was never really any sort of time where you were like, Mom, Dad, I'm done with this shit. Right? It was never like
no fit.
It was just kind of like this long burn. And so the relationship with your mom continued to grow. Mm-hmm. And then she'd gone through a lot of pain through the divorce, which was a bonding, traumatic, right?
Yeah.
Experience with her there. You are the youngest. one of the things that we've connected with so much in our upbringings was that Zach is the youngest too.
Mm-hmm.
And that motherfucker was coddled his whole goddamn life.
But we were also very different, man.
Very different.
I was like the anxious, stay at home, don't want to go do things, where you're like, I want to do everything. And so we were just super, super different. And I think I was coddled because you got kicked out at a young age. I was the last one left.
But they definitely just kind of, they protected you a lot, right?
They did, yeah.
Like from me, from everything, like the world. So you suffer your own fair share of shit from like having a mother and a father that were like very protective over you.
Did they protect you from like information? Like how did they protect you?
They protected me from what I couldn't do.
Okay.
So like when they booted him out, we couldn't see each other for 2.5 years or something like that.
Oh wow!
And so,
well, it was like 6 months.
Well, we couldn't really see each other, but then we just didn't like. It wasn't until I was like
it
senior
really
in high
fucked
school
up our relationship
that we got to see each other again. But then just they're more like, I just had like a really open relationship with them where I would communicate to them like really openly and like safely, because that's the relationship we had. Whereas my brother and sister kind of kept their lives like secret. And so I would be like open to them about like things I was like wanting to do or do. And they'd just be like, no, like, cool. I guess I'm not going to be that or do that. And so it just kind of like, they kind of like molded me for a while until not too late though. Like I was done with them running my life like 18, 19. And then we started DJing, but I didn't let go of the faith until like 25, 26, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Well, that's very similar with me too.
I didn't want to. Like I just was like, it doesn't matter to me. I was like, if I let go of it, then it's done. Then I've let go of it and I'm a full sinner. And I was like, I got to go figure out if that's what I want to do first.
Yeah.
It took me a long time.
Yeah, no, but when you're saying like how they were with you, that was very much how my mom was with me too. Like I was very open with her. Very, that was one of the things that she instilled in me, was like to be very honest and very like, because you can't lie, because thou shalt not bear false witness.
Preach.
So similar, I was very open and yeah, I think she definitely like steered me in certain things and I would like confess certain things that I had done. Like if I like, I remember once I like cheated on a test and I like confessed that to her, and we had like this whole like prayerful moment of like thanking God that Jonathan had this victory over this like sin that he had done, and
almost like turning it into a positive. Keep telling me everything. Keep telling me everything. Turn it into a positive. Totally. No, I was very similar. Like my guilt kind of ruled me, and anything I would do, if I thought it was against God's will, I'd have to go tell my parents. Yeah. So I was like, I pretty much let them in on almost everything. I would get other people in trouble too, because I couldn't like hold my guilt away. It was a big problem.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun growing up with it.
Now maybe this on the flip side though, when I came out, it took me as long as it did because I didn't, in part of that, the other side of that relationship with my mom, meaning I was then trying to protect her, like from me, like from the sin that was me being gay. Right?
Was that because you don't think she could have handled it and you didn't want to like crush her soul, or was it just,
kind of that? Yeah, there was definitely that in it. Yeah, I just didn't want to disappoint her. I didn't want to.
Oh God, yeah.
So
that means you were dealing with like coming to the realization that you were born not chosen. You were like a born like real sinner by being gay. And then you had to protect your own mother from that truth while you were learning it for yourself.
Or I felt I had to.
Or you felt you had to.
Yeah.
When did you tell your mom? Or did she know?
I mean, she knew. Like, and I asked her too. I was like, this is funny. I think it's funny. When I came out to her, like I asked her. I was like, did you know? Like, did you know that I was gonna like come out to you? Because of course it was all dramatic, and we had to like take a car ride together.
Oh, I know all about it. Drama to the highest scale.
So yeah, in that car ride, I asked her. I was like, like, did you suspect this? And like, did you know? She's like, well, yeah, I either like thought that it was this or that like you watched porn.
That's it.
I was like,
you watched porn.
I was like, oh, those two things. Okay, sure.
Sorry to
Okay.
break porn. Same. Sorry to break it to you, Mama. A little more than watching.
Oh, that's kind of
Creating.
sweet that she thought you were taking her on a joyride
No,
just
I'm-
to tell her you watched porn.
And so, so then this fast forward now to like this year, and you're having Christmas with Isaac's mother and your mother.
Mhm.
Your mother's still Seventh Day Adventist. I mean, it sounds like she's over her own trauma and experience has grown a lot. You guys have both grown together, which is
Yeah.
like beautiful.
Yeah, I think so.
I desire that with my mother.
Mm.
And I tell her right now, like a lot of what I desire is just to learn how to be with each other more.
Mhm.
That's it. And to enjoy each other's time together.
Do you guys have anything in common that you like a common activity?
Yeah.
Or
We have I think we've always had a lot in common. A lot of the things that my mother and I had in common, though, were things that I've started to become more aware of that I no longer am like into.
sure.
Like World War II, right? My mother is really into history that is very specific to like some very Americanized historical
Mhm.
recent history. And our grandfather was, like at the end of the war was part of World War II. And so there was like so much growing up that was a very American history, very like World War history movies. And like, there's just so much now where there's so much that I could connect with her on. And there's so much that we have this relationship that's just at a point where I am still, my religious trauma and my own parental trauma is where I've just never felt accepted by my mother ever. And that feeling of being like what we're talking about, accepting yourself. I've had to learn how to accept myself first, which happened a lot this year and a lot like over the last 5 years in therapy. And so my acceptance of self is getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger to where I feel like I'm starting to have enough space to have a sort of like connection with my mom that is real,
Mhm.
where I don't need her to accept me fully to be able to accept her. And I haven't fully learned how to do that, I guess, fully.
Yeah.
A lot has changed with our parents since we started this podcast.
I can imagine.
Yeah. It keeps hitting us like a ton of bricks. I feel like every once in a while we've gotten a lot better at it now that we've been doing it over a year. But
I mean, and the relationship with our parents is actually, for me, has gotten better by being honest with my sibling about like this type of stuff. And so that's violent healing, right? It's like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of power and vulnerability.
Totally. I feel like it's set a boundary that we didn't have prior, at least for me.
Mhm.
That like we believe we were traumatized. It's not like we're keeping it a secret anymore. And now we have to have a relationship with you.
I mean, our experience, I think, with our parents too is like different for Zach than it is for me. And so what's unique about this conversation him and I have had for over a year now is like learning how different of an experience we had in the same family, same dad as a pastor, same church, and we both had a very different connection to that sort of this relationship to our parents. He still has going through like what's happened with our podcast, and he still has a closer relationship with them. I think just based on your like what you guys are connecting on. But one of the things that I was going to ask you, like in this idea of trauma, or like you having Christmas with just you, Isaac's mom, and your mom, and so knowing that she's still Seventh Day Adventist, and it seems like there's been a lot of things broken down. But ultimately, do you ever think about how like you're still not fully accepted, or is that ever like a thought that you still have?
Yeah, it is. I do. Yeah, I mean, I definitely still do have that thought. Like when you were just talking about it, then I've gotten it verbally, like from my dad, in what I mentioned before about him saying like, like I think it was good that you were gay. Like looking back, like your and Isaac's relationship is so great and solid, and yeah, I don't know that I'm going to get that from my mom.
So then,
but meaning verbally, I can't downplay like her presence in my life and her actions of acceptance. but yeah, I don't know that I'm going to get that verbally from her.
But I think you just said it, because just from what you've talked a little bit about your experience, it sounds like there were actions made by your parents to show that there's an ability of them to love you beyond even their like core beliefs.
Totally.
Right. Because that's a lot of what this, at least in my experience, has been. And so did you ever wrestle with like this? Because it sounds like you've been able to keep this really intimate relationship with your mother, which I really look up to. And I'm like curious, the more people that we get to talk to that have religious trauma or come out of the church like this, what the process has been for them. And it sounds like your mother really does love you and does accept you.
Yeah.
But like actions are always louder than words. Yeah. Right. And so were you ever in a time in your life that was more demanding for verbal validation from your parents or your mother?
Yeah. I think just like in those first few years, I wanted it. But again, I was like scared to ask for it. And now that I'm a little bit older, I think that's why I do like push it a little bit, like push the boundaries and like act all queenie and talk about RuPaul to her and like, like reference those very, very like queer things in front of her. Cause I'm maybe testing her a little bit just to like see how she reacts, like, and just pushing her a little. And she's fine, like she's, I think it's been my own work to get over that, type of validation, because ultimately, just like you said, she's shown me in her actions, and her presence in my life. Like we talk most every day, and her, being open about her life, to me, that she does love me, that she does accept me. Again, on the religious side, I don't know if she does. I haven't explicitly asked her, as now like Isaac and I have gotten married. We kind of just, we eloped and we didn't tell anyone, including our mothers, until after the fact.
Scary,
but she was
wild.
She was the one that gave the most affirming reaction to us.
Yeah.
Which was great. That did feel really, really nice, to have that, reaction from her.
That's beautiful.
But yeah, in terms of like, if I said, Mom, do you think that it's okay that I'm gay? Like, I don't know that I want to ask her that. At this point, I'm kind of like, I'm just going to live and let her live. And she's still there for me. She's
live and let live.
Live and let live. Live, laugh, laugh.
Wow.
I think it's so tough.
That's incredible.
I think it's so tough with the religion. Just religion in general. It's like, if she were to be like, no, I still accept you, then she's denying her religion. Like, at least if you believe it as deeply as you're supposed to be perfectly believing it.
Yeah.
And that just makes it so difficult.
And our parents are they are leaders in the church, the examples from we were kids. So
they can't sway.
They can't ever sway. So this sort of validations within actions are far and few between.
Yeah, no, and I think too, just as an adult, I've one of the things that in my relationship with Isaac has helped me understand, is that need for validation that I've had. Maybe as like a youngest, I don't know if you feel this too, but like some of the things that we've done as kids were to like get attention because we maybe were kind of left behind because we were the last ones, and like, whether that's evolution or whatever, like, look at me, like, feed me, like I'm still here, even though you have like 18 other chicks in your brood. Yeah. But that has been something that I've tried to work on, not needing as much.
Sure.
Not craving that validation from others as much. Because I do. I crave it. Need it.
Tell me about it. Oh my God.
I think it is youngest thing.
Like, watch this podcast. Yeah. Watch this episode. Please. Love us.
Press that like and subscribe button.
Go ahead and like comment
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. I mean, I think that I've been on the same journey and have been, and I'm getting closer and closer and closer to that source, which feels like, when am I going to get there? And then I realize, there is really no end to this process, which is like letting go, acceptance and surrender. So how do I accept and surrender to my parents more? Like this vulnerable conversation has really helped me a lot. I mean, and a lot of therapy, a lot of plant medicine, and, less alcohol. There's a lot of, I think it's like a lot of different angles to it. But that's really beautiful to hear that you still have such a really close relationship with your mother. I think that's extremely important. And I think that everyone deserves love and to be loved. And I think that if we are lucky enough to meet one person on this planet, like one, to show us, because we all fail at some point, every day, all day.
Yeah.
But if we can meet one person that can show us an example of what it feels like to be accepted, tip to tip, like every little part of you, and not only just accepted, but then like the areas that are the insecure accepting parts, they're like, that's what I want to see shine more. I love that part of you. And there's like this feeling of like, oh, I've never felt this. I've never felt somebody making me feel proud to be the part of me that is normally not accepted in like my family. And so like my experience with my partner has been like, this is what it feels like to just be fully 100% accepted and encouraged in that truth.
Yeah.
And that's like been the most validation I think I've had and it's not everything, but it's like such a huge part of like my childhood, not feeling what it was like to be 100% okay. Like just, you're okay. You're okay. And I love you for who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that sounds like that's what your mother has for you, but she can't always say it.
Yeah.
But you feel that.
Yeah.
And that's powerful.
Yeah, it is. And I honestly feel that from my dad too. We're just geographically much farther away.
Sure.
And
Where does your dad live?
he lives in Georgia.
Okay.
That's where we're moving.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
guys are moving to Georgia.
I guess.
Everyone wants to move to
Georgia?
Atlanta.
Georgia.
Savannah.
Georgia. Georgia.
I just about was gonna try, but then no. I cut that one off.
How we feeling?
Doing good.
This will be one of our longer podcasts.
I feel like we only, skipped the rock along the
I know.
pond. We're probably going to have you back about 14 more times to really get down and dirty.
I know, and that's that's
I'm
also
down.
how our conversations go. Is we'll spend like 20 minutes trying to get into the flow, and then it's like, all right, now we're in the pocket. But I thought that was really beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Of course, I would love to be back. Don't hesitate to ask.
Good luck. We have so many guests lined up over the next 14 years.
We're pretty popular.
We have no other guests lined up at all. You're our only.
No, we have other people that will be on the cast at some point. But in terms of like having someone else booked, it's tough.
And we've done one episode of our new segment, which is called "Does It Heal?" where we go out and we've decide different ways that people use different modalities of healing or wellness, and then we like film ourselves doing it and then talk about it and like figure out did it work. And so our next one, if we're gonna do it, was gonna be the cold plunge.
But now that it's so cold,
but that's why I think it'd be so perfect. Like cold plunge in December would be, or January would be hilarious.
So at the end of Nate finally got in on it, but like for years now, I've been doing cold end of my showers. So like you freeze yourself at the end of the shower.
Are we the same person?
Gives you a little shock.
You too.
Activates the part of your brain, give you more tenacity. Everyone wants a little more tenacity. But to hop in a bath full of ice and sit in it for a minute. Every time I'm doing the cold shower now, I'm like, I think I'm going to have the biggest freak out. And I guess that'd be great content. So,
but I know you, and you're someone that does benefit from putting yourself into some form of suffering, right? To connect more with your inner self.
Maybe it's because we were raised to suffer.
Yeah, right.
That it like connects us back to our roots. It's like suffer for a little bit. Just 2 minutes. Okay, get back up.
Does Isaac do cold showers?
He does not.
Of course he doesn't. There's like this weird connection we make.
She was gay when he came out and does not need cold showers now.
So never. Is Isaac religious at all? Or was he raised religious at all?
No. Yeah, he was raised, raised Catholic.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm joking.
Same.
Yeah. That's not real religious trauma.
There's no RTS there. No, I'm joking.
They had that box.
Was like Adventist, like arch nemesis was the Catholic Church.
Oh yeah,
of course.
Yeah, same with Christians.
The history is so long.
Yeah,
well, it's
so
just you meet so many Catholics that are like, oh, so you just go to church every once in a while and you can do whatever the hell you want. That's what I came across a lot.
Yeah,
and then you really meet Seventh Day Adventists or Christians, and they're like, this is my life. I never sin.
Yeah,
I'm perfect.
Fully engulfed.
These are all jokes because I've been on the Reddit, which is there's ex-Catholic, ex-Seventh Day Adventist, ex-Christian. There's all these forums on Reddit, and they're fascinating.
Yeah,
and if you go to the ex-Catholic forum,
I can imagine.
There's so much
It is
trauma.
pure jokes.
Yeah.
Pure jokes here.
It's not like the Catholic Church has done anything mean to little boys in the church, too.
Or, occupied any territories or anything like that.
There's none of that in the Catholic Church.
No, it's perfect.
Perfect in every way.
But yeah, we'd love to have you for that would be fun to have a, join
Does
us
it
for
heal? Or we
Does
also
It
do
Heal?
like a moment
Sure.
to Reddit. I was telling Nate before you came over that it'd be awesome to have like a guest to do it with us instead of just us. And so
Yeah.
you're right down the street, so we're gonna force you to be here more often.
Yeah, I'm down for whatever.
Is there anything that you
want to plug some shows?
Yeah,
you got some shows coming up.
every podcast is like, go ahead. Now all the cameras are on
Yeah,
you. Tell us
plug your
what do you do with your
shows.
life? What's coming out? You have a book?
Well, we just did our party, so we're kind of going to hole up for the rest of the season.
Yeah, you have a lot
Take
of
break.
cleaning to do.
Oh God, a lot of cleaning.
Some
girl.
vomit to.
That floor is sticky.
Yeah, well, when you allow
So is our
90
dog,
plus
by the
people.
way.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know at this Christmas party, Isaac and Jonathan have these very older dogs, tiny, right? Like, how old are they? 42?
Yeah. Yes. Combined. In dog years. Yeah.
No, more like 100.
100 in dog years. Yeah. Another 15 and 9.
Yeah.
What kind of dogs?
One's a Papillon. He's the older one. And then the other one's a cockapoo.
But one of them
Not
has
gay dogs at all.
just like Giorgio, one of them has a diaper.
Yeah.
And so all night at this party,
diapers
there's
are
just
tough.
like, tons of people everywhere. And there's these tiny little dogs just eating like little pieces of the wrapping from presents and some food here. And
Some vomit there.
Megan and I were constantly like grabbing the dogs and being like, oh my God, this is not good.
Thank
They're
you.
having
Thank you for
fun.
watching. Can I just give her a little shout out? Because I just love her so much.
Oh,
As in Megan.
I do too. I know what you're talking about. I know exactly who you're talking about because I love her too.
Yeah, we all love her.
Megan, my fiance.
sunshine.
She
I feel like
is.
I know your husband and I know your fiance.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all are so fucking lucky
Yeah.
to be with who we are.
Yeah, for
We
sure.
should all go on vacation together.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, well, actually, we're so excited to announce that one of the gifts we do give our guests is a trip with us, the Moral Combat podcast crew, to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
Yeah, we're going.
Porto what?
But we have to go right now.
I've never been. I don't even know how to say it. Puerto Vallarta. How do you
Porto
say it?
Lavarte.
Puerto
Sound white
Vallarta?
at all.
So white.
Puerto Vallarta?
Yeah.
Puerto Vallarta?
Sorry, I don't have enough money to go there.
I think we're going actually in.
Of course you are. That's
In
why I said it.
March.
Of course you are.
No, for Masto's birthday.
Ah, fun.
Yeah. The big 5-0. Oh, sorry. Put that on
Ooh,
blast.
Wow.
Sorry, babe.
How old are you?
Me?
Yeah.
38.
Wait,
38.
Isaac's 50?
No, sorry. Our other friend
Friends.
is 50.
Oh, I was like,
Yeah.
what? He
Yeah.
looks amazing for 50.
Doesn't age.
Yeah, seriously.
Didn't you
seen-
know that? If you're not born in the church,
No, it's like
you don't age. It's the stress
No,
of
the
religious
secret is
trauma
being
that takes
gay.
your hair away.
It's being gay that keeps you young. Everyone knows that, Nate.
Yeah, it's because
That's why the
we-
church doesn't want you to
It's
do it.
because we
you'll
don't
live
get
forever.
married and have like a bunch of kids to like
Yeah.
worry about.
Oh my
We
goodness.
only worry about ourselves.
I know. It's all
Selfish.
It's,
Hell yeah.
there are like a lot of pluses in terms of finances to being gay. That's true.
To being dinks.
Great.
I love it.
I was too late. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I bloomed last year.
I have a 12-and-a-half-year-old. I'm poor as shit.
No, you're not. Look at this beautiful home we're sitting in,
I'm
dude.
very lucky.
Yeah, this is a
Very
really
lucky.
nice home.
And I think we started off with that, with asking about, or at some point I said, do you suffer from religious trauma? And you were like, I want to say suffer because I have so much privilege in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something Zach and I are constantly
Well, it's hard to think of it as
coming to
suffering.
that conclusion.
It's hard to think. I agree with you. It's hard to think of it as suffering because I love who I am. And I love all the trauma I went through because it's made me exactly who I am today. And I don't know who I would be without my religious trauma.
Yeah.
And so it's like, is it traumatizing? It's like, for sure. Like there's things that would traumatize me, but I'm not suffering in it. Like I'm working through it now, finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I definitely feel that for sure.
And then if you talk about it, if you really just think about this life that we all had growing up in the church as children, and you just talk about it, you start to realize there probably is a lot suppressed or swept under the rugs where you're like, oh, that does hurt. Now that we've talked about it, that's crazy. And we've had that experience so much of just like kind of being mind blown with our pasts and so.
Yeah, I've had a lot of those conversations with Isaac. He's definitely been
your ear.
He's such a wise human. I don't know that you know. I know you know, but I don't know that you know just how wise. I think he's just like such a wise, intelligent, smart person. And he's given me a lot in my life, and has inserted questions in my brain that has really helped me in my growth. He's amazing. I love him.
Yeah. You're so lucky to
That's
have
why I
him.
married him.
Yeah, seriously.
Gotta lock him down while you can.
Exactly.
Yeah, seriously. You lock
One of us has to be the brains.
Lock that tongue down, boy. That's a funny note to end on, but anyways.
Lock that tongue down.
Lock that tongue down.
All right, it's been a good night.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back. Thank you so much for doing
Yeah,
this.
thanks for being here,
Of
Jonathan.
course. Thank you guys for having me.
I love
It's
you.
been great. I love you.
And thanks for being vulnerable and having this conversation. And anything else?
No, I think it's a great way to just let it be.
All right.
Let it be.
Let it be. Oh, let it be. Oh, let it be. Speaking words of wisdom. Let it be.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Merry Christmas, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank
Thank
you
you, Jonathan.
guys.
Thanks for being
Bye,
here.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.